Welcome, everyone, to episode 2 of the TD Experience NFL podcast. I am your host, TD himself, Trey Downey, and alongside my co-host...
Start over. Start over.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, brother.
No, you're good.
Soon as we started. All right. How's it sound now?
It's good. No more airplanes.
All right, brother. Go ahead.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 2 of the TD Experience NFL podcast, right here on the TD Experience Podcast Network. I am your host, TD himself, Trey Downey, alongside my trusty co-host, Cliff Kidwell, up there in Baltimore, Maryland. How you doing, Cliff?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm ready. I'm excited, man. How about it, man? 1 week of football is in, guys. Did everybody get their fix in? I know I did, man. It was a way to kick off the season, man. I'm excited for football season. And honestly, Trey, I know we can't really tell week 1, but it looks like any given Sunday out here, man. Any given Sunday.
Yeah, a lot of close games out there week 1. Only a couple, of the really, really bad teams got blown out. Mostly one-score games. All offseason, we were just talking about speculation, but now we finally have some games to talk about, something to go off all of that hype that we witnessed all offseason long. Great first weekend of games. We're going to get into all of that. We're going to get into the second week of games. We're going to give you our picks there today. We're going to go over the big injuries from week 1. We're going to tell you which team impressed us the most, which team was the most disappointing. Some coaches might already be on the hot seat after just 1 week. So that's interesting. Cliff is going to give you his fantasy football pick of the week, and I'm going to give you my betting line pick of the week. So you can make money in fantasy football, and you can make money betting online. So we're gonna give you some good tips here, but just don't come after us if we're wrong.
So Trey, actually, how'd you do in fantasy this week anyway, buddy?
I am 1-0, thanks to the great Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins, both getting me over 20 points. Jeremy Hill and Jamal Charles also both getting me a solid 15 points as well. You gave me some crap about Eli Manning. Did not do very well, only 7 points.
But
I've got Tyrod Taylor waiting on the bench. He next man up.
You know what? My first fantasy game, I had a tough. I was going against Gronkowski. So I pretty much got smoked. It was not fun at all. But you know what? Just like beginning of the season, we're just starting out. We're ready to fight, and I'm excited, man. Now we got this game tape, and I like to call it. Got that first week. Coach always says once you get that game tape going, pretty much the picks can tell what your team's going to do for the rest of the year, man. So I'm excited, man. Let's get into this, brother.
Exactly, and we're going to start this week with. At the end of the show last week, we picked which game we were most interested in watching this weekend. So we're going to talk about those games. Both of the games that we picked ended up being very intriguing contests. And we're going to start off with the Monday night game, the game you picked as the one you wanted to watch the most. Philly and Atlanta. What's your takeaways from what happened in Atlanta on Monday night? Atlanta pulling somewhat of an upset over the Eagles.
Well, I kind of talked about it how actually my pick was wrong. I picked the Eagles to win it, but it still didn't disappoint. The Eagles offense got off to a slow start going into the half, 20-3, I believe, and it was just disappointing. However, they just burst out into the scenes in the second half, and honestly, if Chip Kelly goes for it on fourth down, we could be talking about how the Eagles come back and win. However,
if Parkey makes that field goal, we can be talking about a different game.
You're absolutely right. I do, however, think that this Chip, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you watched it, this Chip's offense is something new. It's going to revolutionize sports. I think he has the sports science thing down. I don't think his teams will get tired throughout the season. I think the more wear and tear on the other teams this year is going to hurt them, affecting that run fast, not run fast, I'm sorry, that strong super fast-paced offense. However, I think he needs to find a balance. Trey, I got some stats here for you. They only had 63 rushing yards the whole entire game. They had to find some kind of balance there where they can do. I mean, you have DeMarco Murray. You know what I mean, Trey? You go out there and get DeMarco Murray and Matthews, and you're not utilizing on that.
Well, I think Ryan Matthews actually did look good. DeMarco Murray not so much. I'm really starting to wonder. legitimately think that DeMarco Murray chose to go to the Eagles just to spite Dallas, and that's going to be very interesting to see this weekend. But DeMarco Murray, a downhill runner behind that strong offensive line in Dallas. You're not seeing DeMarco Murray get a lot of draw and speed sweep handoffs down in Dallas, and now he's taking most of his handoffs out of the shotgun. And there's
Right.
that extra 3 yards in the backfield that adds up. And with these fast defenses, I think it's gonna take a while for DeMarco Murray to get more comfortable in this offense, and we'll see what he can do. Legitimately, honestly, I think Ryan Matthews is a little bit more comfortable in the offense, and I think it's
Okay.
great that they have both of these two guys
Yes.
because,
Yes.
as we said last week when we were previewing the Eagles, both of these guys have had injury troubles in the past. They
Right.
both have really solid talent, but they both have injury trouble. So having both of them on the same team, and the fact that it is such a fast-paced offense, and they have two top-flight running backs that they can switch in and out, is a real benefit to the Eagles. But we
And,
can talk about Atlanta too. Talk about how that defense
yes.
really did step
Came
up under
through.
Dan
Yeah.
Quinn. I picked them to win the division. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, man, that
Man.
guy. I mean,
Burst into this.
legitimately,
Woo.
Calvin Johnson struggled a little bit in week 1, but you could be talking about, at the end of this, everybody still wants to talk about Calvin Johnson, some of the other guys, even Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown still looked pretty good, even though the
Yeah.
Patriots were putting every single person in their secondary on to cover him. But, I mean, I don't know if I'm ready to crown him yet, as Denny Green would say, but Julio Jones is right there as being a top receiver in the NFL. Vic Beasley showed some signs. Dan Quinn's defense really looks like it has some promise, especially going up against a team like Philly in week
Right.
1.
And you know what? You said it, man. Julio Jones is looking solid. I hate to say it, Matt Ryan looks like they got it clicking. Everything's going for Philly, right? I mean, for Atlanta right now. So it's going to be exciting, especially within that weak division they're in. It's going to be exciting to see them, go into this with a first game, solid first game, and see how they do for the rest of the year. Trey, man, your team, your surprise team, you said that's going to do something this year, had a great game against, honestly, what we thought was, the top team in the AFC.
A team
Uh,
I picked to win the Super Bowl.
yes, you did, sir. You actually, so talk to me a little about how Buffalo, how they impressed you a little bit.
Buffalo, I mean, I thought they were going to be great, and I actually picked them to win this game. Tough game
Yeah,
on the road to start the season. New things that Rex Ryan's going to be throwing at Andrew Luck, but they impressed me, beyond belief. They were
yeah,
even more impressive than I thought they would be.
right.
Um, Especially on the defensive side of the ball. I thought the defense was going to be great, but I didn't think that they would be able to shut down Andrew Luck and that offense the way that they did for pretty much the entire game. The Colts came back into the game and made it somewhat of a game later on
Right.
when it was
Petty
final
points,
score
petty
20
points.
yeah, 27-14. But Buffalo was up 24-0.
Yeah.
So,
Those
I
points don't
mean,
say, those petty points, buddy.
exactly.
Yeah.
So Buffalo, that defense with Rex Ryan being able to, Marcel Darius on that new contract, blitzing Mario Williams, they're bringing the house at Andrew Luck. And, the offensive line might need some work in Indy, but that defense just looks stellar. And we can talk about my guy Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah. Oh, man. You see that
Ty,
51-yard touchdown pass? Touch, man. It
to
was
to
perfect. Right,
Percy Harvin too.
right.
So I mean, the speed on that offense is just
Yes.
absolutely ridiculous.
Oh,
LaShawn McCoy did not look great. The running game did.
but
I'll
he didn't
admit
disappoint, though.
it
He
didn't
did
look
not
great.
disappoint.
But I think Tyrod Taylor is going to be a guy. He's going to be a guy that you can count on to protect the football, which is not really what you think of when you think of guys like RG3 and even Michael Vick. They're a little suspect to turnovers, but
Right.
Tyrod Taylor is going to be like a hybrid. He's going to be like a mix between Russell Wilson and a guy like that, to where he's going to protect the football, get the ball
Right.
to who it needs to go to, and then a couple of times each week he's going to show some flashes with his legs. He's going to make
Right.
a great deep pass. He's just going to show some. He's not going to be say a world beater every single play, but he's going to show a couple of flashes every game that show why he's the starter on this team and why EJ
And
Manuel, first round draft pick, is sitting on the bench. So
you
I
know,
mean, They look great, and I mean, I'll let you talk about the Bills as well, but we can talk about Indy as well and how some
Yeah,
of their new additions didn't look too great, especially Frank Gore.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? One thing, yeah, you said it right there, Trey, is that he showed that he is not your average, I'm around the pocket. He's a pass first quarterback. And this is something new for me, saying that even with, being 4 years in Baltimore, he really never had a chance to shine being behind Joe Flacco. But, usually when he came in preseason games, which, like I said, preseason games are nothing, he just was a run first kind of player. It's something amazing to see him involved. I mean, you should have watched him. He was in the pocket, looking downfield always. He checked down. There was a play in particular where I believe it was, I think it was 2nd and 8, and they play action, and he had. Oh, by the way, that offensive line did perfect for Tyrod Taylor. They blocked for him, and then he looked downfield. His eyes was downfield, and he does a check off to Charles Clay, and Clay gets the first down. He just looks his motions, his progressions. He just looks like a great pocket passer, and it's something to say that he has that playmaker ability to run out the pocket. So it's going to be something. I mean, that Bills team is looking very good. They shut down Frank Gore and they just shut down Frank Gore, and that kind of puts pressure on Andrew Luck again to be a pass first quarterback again.
Mm,
You know what? To me, the defense wasn't surprising to me at all. That secondary is stellar. That defensive line, even without Marcel Darius, is stellar. Defense didn't surprise me too much. I knew they were going to go in and play heavy, but to stop Frank Gore and to make Andrew Luck a passing quarterback, which honestly, Trey, I would tell you firsthand, even though Andrew Luck had an amazing year, he threw 16 interceptions. If you force Andrew Luck into just a passing down quarterback, to me, you're going to have some trouble there. Andrew Luck needs that backup. He needs that run game. And what the Bills did to go up there in Indy and to stuff like that, I mean, it's just tremendous, man. It's to me exciting football year for Buffalo Bills, man.
yeah, Buffalo
Buffalo,
definitely.
you have a reason to cheer again. Buffalo, you have
Exactly.
a reason to cheer again.
Those fans in Buffalo, they got a great first game. They had a team. A lot of people were picking to win the Super Bowl. Come in to their
Mm-hmm.
town up there in New York, and that's the only
Sorry.
sports team around there. So they have
Right.
one of the biggest, like how you have crazy fans in Oklahoma City for the Thunder and basketball. You have the same kind of atmosphere
Right.
up there in Buffalo for the Bills. And Tyrod, you mentioned how you thought he was more of a run first quarterback. I saw a lot more of him in college, watching
Okay.
Virginia Tech a lot, and Virginia Tech, he's not like an RG3 who is running complete like spread offense, or even a Marcus Mariota at Oregon, where a lot of
Okay.
people think that Virginia Tech runs a pro style offense. With Tyrod Taylor, they worked a little around what he could do, but he was still under center, having to make progressions, making handoffs not out of the shotgun. So Tyrod has a lot of that experience at Virginia Tech. You can really compare him to what Russell Wilson did. Russell Wilson at NC State and at Wisconsin, where he ran a pro style offense there. And
Okay.
I think that that's a good mix for some of these. If you get some of these spread style guys into pro style offenses in college where they have a little bit of experience with that, then they're going to shine in the NFL. We'll talk a little bit about the other, quarterbacks that got their first start in the NFL a little bit later in the show. But
Okay.
those were two big takeaways. I
Yes.
mean, I don't think it's time to push the panic button on the Colts.
No.
That was a very good team. They're going to have to
Very.
play another very tough defense this week in the Jets. Antonio Cromartie might not play, so there's going to be a little difference there. But we're going to see what happens with them. We're going to talk about coaches on the hot seat later, and interesting things coming out of Indy already
Already, man.
In regards to Chuck Pagano. So we're going to see what happens there. Frank Gore and Andre Johnson, they're going to have to get more production
Yes.
out of those guys. They
Got you.
paid him a good amount of money to come in there to take that next step and get to the Super Bowl. So we're going to have to see more out of those guys if this is going to be a team that really, really succeeds. Tough loss in week 1, but you look at that division, Tennessee looked great, but that's still not a very strong division. So
Right.
Indy just needs to get the ball rolling. They really need to pick up a win against the Jets on Monday night.
Hold 1 second. We're gonna reach this spot. I'm working next to the airport. If you didn't
That's cool.
know.
Indy really needs to pick up a win against the Jets this Monday night, or the you're adding fuel to the fire, and things are
Right.
going to get really interesting at Indy. So this week is going to be a very big game. I don't want to call it a must win, but on Monday night it's going to be a very big game for Andrew Luck and the Colts,
Well,
especially at home. Their home opener.
well, well, and let's get into this a little bit too. The Jets have an injury already into that
Exactly. Go
into
the
that
injury report.
secondary. Yeah, into that secondary where you paid money, and we had this. You look at the Jets with got Pryor back there, Darrelle Revis, and then they bring in Cromartie, and he's already down. And now their their secondary is not bad. They still have D Miller that can step up and everything. But that injury right there is going to be very hurtful for the Jets, who honestly look good week one.
They did play the Browns.
Yeah, they did play the Browns. It's not saying too much. But Trey, talk about more about injury. How is that going? You really think that's going to affect the Jets secondary?
Well, you still have Revis, which is
Right.
great, and the
Right.
injury is not as bad as initially feared. Coming out of that game on Sunday, they had Cromartie in for an MRI on Monday, and they thought it could be a possible MCL tear and ACL tear. It is neither. So he's going to be, I believe, he's listed as doubtful on the injury report right now, but I'm sure he's not going to play. I don't know exactly the length of the injury, but he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. But losing Antonio Cromartie going into a game against the Colts is going to be rough. Like you said, D. Milliner, he possibly could step up, but he's been one of the most disappointing players since
Yes.
coming
Yes, he
into
has.
the NFL. So, the Cromartie injury, I mean, it's going to be a hit to that team, but when you have guys like Revis, when you have Todd Bowles coaching up that defense,
Yeah.
I think they can overcome it. But that secondary really is the strength of their team. So they're going to need to get Cromartie back if they're really going to exceed expectations. Big week one against Cleveland. But, if they're going to compete, especially in that division with
Yeah.
Buffalo, with New
Wow.
England, the Dolphins, I don't think look very, very good in week one
No,
against
no,
the
no.
Redskins. But a lot of people have a lot of hype surrounding them. So we're going to see what happens with that. I mean, some other big injuries in week one. We can also talk about the Packers losing
Yeah.
Sam Barrington, a starting
Right.
linebacker for the entire season, and definitely already losing Jordy Nelson. Are the Packers in trouble? How much they didn't really bring anybody in the offseason. This is the same team that they had last year. So is depth going to start to be troublesome in Green Bay?
Well, here's my thing. I think when you have a player, first of all, they have great coaching. McCarthy has just been there. He's been a great coach for them. I think they'll be fine. When you have good coaching, you can lose players like that because they got the next guy stepping up. However, I think they have Aaron Rodgers there. And when you have playmakers like Julius Peppers and Clay Matthews, you can move
Exactly.
those guys around. Clay Matthews played 86% in the middle linebacker position last year.
Yeah.
Pretty much the whole entire season. So moving him back to middle linebacker and get those guys like Nick Perry or on the side, to stop in there like that. So and you have that Boyd who can be trained, who can actually go to the DN now. They have some depth there where don't get me wrong, losing that middle linebacker, it takes Clay Matthew off the edge rush with the outside rush, which it's going to hurt for them. But they think they have that universal where they can move a lot of people elsewhere to cover up for that spot. One injury that I can talk about that's going to hurt is, I'm sorry, my homer guys, losing Terrell Suggs. Now, he's an older player, but he is a defensive vocal leader. Not only just a defensive vocal leader, a team vocal leader. Losing him is tremendous.
The heart and soul of that defense, especially with Ray Lewis no longer there as well.
Exactly, and he knows that he knows to read the quarterback. He knows to change the play. But it's kind of still exciting. As a Ravens fan, I am kind of like, oh man, this is kind of scary, but it's kind of exciting because we get to see development of C.J. Mosley. We still got old man Darrell Smith, who's actually been a great Ray Lewis replacement. So you know what? And then we go ahead and get Jason Babin, who only had 2 sacks in the past 2014 season. Only had 2 sacks. But we could talk about the year in Tennessee and a year he spent with the Eagles, and he had a great season. So maybe we get to see a little bit into that. I'm not really putting too bad and high, but honestly, losing Terrell Suggs was tremendous. Trey, he had Achilles problem a couple years beforehand. He recovered well and had a 10-sack season. But with him and Dumerville doing that pass rush, who led the league together in most sacks together by any team, so it's very tremendous. It's going to hurt us, Trey. And I'm worried, man. I'll be the first one to tell you it's only week one, but it's worried. But I think with the enrollment of Jason Babin, we'll see how. And we also have Courtney Upshaw's, and we have a reversible defensive line as well. So it's pretty worrisome, Trey.
I mean, I think that the Dez Bryant injury, which we'll talk about in just a minute, that's a big one. But I think as far as losing a guy for the season, I think this is the biggest.
Hold on 1 second.
We'll talk about the Dez Bryant injury in a minute, but I think that this is the biggest defensive loss, and I think it's the biggest injury loss in the NFL season so far, even possibly bigger than Jordy Nelson, because, like I said, Terrell Suggs is the heart and soul of that defense. You bring in a guy like Jason Babin, who has had some good seasons in the past, but he's primarily played with his hand in the dirt as a defensive end and 4-3 defenses. So we're going to see how much he can add to that pass rush as a stand-up outside linebacker like Suggs played the majority of the time. We're going to see what happens there. But losing a guy like Terrell Suggs is huge, and he's getting up there in age. And
That's
an Achilles injury is a lot of people talk about ACLs, but Achilles tendon ruptured, a lot of people look at that as a career-ending injury. We don't necessarily I don't want to go there right now with Terrell Suggs because he has this because it happened in week 1, so he's out for the season, so he's going to have a very long time to recover and see what can happen next season. But we're going to have to see if he can really come back and be the same guy. Like you said, he did have injury issues in the past. But, a ruptured Achilles at this stage of your career, it's going to be interesting to see if he can come back from that.
Trey, he actually tore the same Achilles he tore a couple years back. So this is the same one. So honestly, do we put that this could be a career? I don't want to say that as a Ravens fan. You don't want to say that for any player, actually, especially a great player like Terrell Suggs, who can possibly, not really a soft talking to a Hall of Famer, that this could be the end of his career, which is very upsetting because he's a great player. And with that, that new Ravens offense getting a little younger, defense getting a little younger, it's going to be kind of sad not having the rest of the year. To be honest, though, Trey, you touched on it. We got Dez Bryant here out to 4. Now, at first it was 4 to 6 weeks. Now I'm hearing 4 to 8 weeks. 4 to 8 weeks without Dez Bryant, and Tony Romo's going to miss him. He's going to be. He has other players like Jason Witten. He also has a Terrence Williams who can against the ball. But Dez Bryant is literally the pivotal point of your offense now, not having DeMarco Murray in the backfield. So Trey, what do you think the Cowboys do from here?
They're going to have to, make somebody step up. Cole Beasley, Jason Witten, those guys are really going to have to step up in the weeks to come because losing Dez Bryant, a guy like that, is just huge. People talk about he's up there with the Julio Jones, with the Calvin Johnsons as, a possible best receiver in the NFL, and losing him, especially to a foot injury this early in the season, is a very big deal. So we're going to see what happens with that. They're going to have to get next man up. And we're going to have to see what the running game can do because last year they
Which running back though?
I think Joseph Randle stepped up in the Sunday night game, and I think Joseph Randle showed that he should be the starter over Darren McFadden so far. So
what about Dunbar? Dunbar looked great too.
Dunbar looked good as well, but I think right now Joseph Randle is the guy. They can still split it up by committee when you have an offensive line like that. So I think they're going to have to lean very heavily on the running game going forward in these couple weeks when they're going to be out. They've got a big division game coming up this weekend at Philly. They've got New England coming up as well, which is going to be while Dez is out. We're going to see how that surgery went on his foot and see how quick, because you saw him coming out of the locker room hobbling to congratulate his team. He's become somewhat of a, I don't want to say a leader, but a vocal, a motivator for that team. And we're going to see what they can do without him. I think a lot of these guys are going to be, they're going to be motivated to step up in his absence. But I think really, really they're going to have to lean heavily on the running game. and Joseph Randle, Dunbar, and Darren McFadden are all really going to have to step up. And I mean, the offensive line carried that team on the shoulders last season, and I think that they can do the same this season. Tony Romo stepped up in the final minutes of that game.
Yes.
But he did throw some
Two
interceptions.
interceptions.
So without Des Bryant, without that safety blanket, Jason Witten is usually the safety blanket other than Des
Yeah.
Bryant. But
Right.
now Jason Witten is really going to be the go-to guy. So we're going to see what teams do to take Jason Witten out, and then you're going to have to Cole Beasley as being a number one receiver. He's a decent slot option, but like I said, I think they're really going to have to count on the running game to make something happen. Possibly hopefully 4 weeks rather than 8. But if they can go something like 2-2 and just stay alive, it'd be even worse if they wouldn't have been able to come back and beat the Giants in the final minute, starting 0-1 and losing your best player on the team.
Yeah.
So I mean, I hate to say it, but Dallas's defense is going to have to step up too. The
Yes, they
defense
are.
in the running game. And, without DeMarco Murray and, what we've said about that defense in the past, I think
Right.
it's going to be – I picked Dallas to not make the playoffs, and some people picked them to go to the Super Bowl. So I think this is going to be an injury that could possibly, when we look back at the end of the season, when Dallas is sitting there just on the outside out at 8-8, 9-7, this is going to be what we look at as to say why they aren't headed back to the playoffs this season.
And you know what, Trey? It's just been injury bug all around the league. We have some top players. I'm just listing name of a few. T.Y. Hilton goes down at the ending of those games. Like we just talked about Andrew Luck. Getting Andre Johnson back into it. T.Y. Hilton goes down. They do have other wide receivers they can help up. They drafted one in the first round. So it's tough for them. You got Josh McCow, who is the I hate this fan play.
No, you're good. You're good. Whenever that happens, I have the control. There's a control room app for this Google Hangout thing. So whenever that happens, like if I'm talking, I can mute your mic, like mute it
Okay.
on your end. So like it'll still be good. But I'll
All
just
right.
edit these little pieces out. But you can
All right, I'm gonna
keep
go back
going.
to. Then you got Josh McCow, who who was your starting quarterback. Yes, we got a Johnny Manziel there, but he's been playing with the twos now. Trey, he's actually going back. Now Johnny Manziel has to practice with the ones. Josh McCow with a concussion. We know how serious NFL is taking concussions seriously now, so we don't know how he's going to about. Then you got Luke Kuechly. I mean, you talking
Huge
about
loss there.
huge loss. You know what? You got Deshaun Jackson, but I'm gonna go back to Luke Kuechly. Um, Honestly, even with Terrell Suggs gone and Des Bryant being gone and T.Y. Hilton almost day to day right now actions, I think Luke Kuechly is one of the biggest losses. First of all, you already have a key player on their offense, Kelvin Benjamin, going down, and then you essentially have the QB of their defense going down. Now they have a great deal with Thomas David Thomas who can step up into the role player. I mean, but still, Trey, Luke Kuechly by far this season is for right now is the biggest loss. I mean,
Well,
more
I
than
mean,
Jordy Nelson, I think. It's just the biggest loss for that team.
it's a concussion, so hopefully he can pass the concussion protocol. He went out, did not return in the second half. Happened in the second quarter, Sunday against Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna have to hope that Luke Kuechly and Josh McCown can pass those concussion protocols. I necessarily don't think too much that the injury to Josh McCown is that big of a deal, because I felt like eventually they were gonna go to Johnny Manziel, and I feel like that's the better option for that team going into the future. So we're going to see what happens in the future when it comes to Josh McCown, Luke Kuechly. The concussions are tricky, so they're a wait and see injury, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens when it comes to that, and if they're going to be able to overcome a concussion. I need to figure out how to unmute you. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to kick you out and then call you back. Hello. Okay, I think I know. I think I know what happened. I think I